here's your host of Shaping Success, Wes Tankersley.
What is up, everyone? Welcome to Shaping Success. I'm your host, Wes Tankersley. I'm very excited for tonight's guest. Before we get started here, can you do me a favor? If you are watching this on Facebook Live, can you please do a watch party? If you're listening to this on the podcast, please like, share, and review it on Apple Podcasts. Subscribe to it on Spotify. Do whatever you can to help me grow the show because I want to get the word out and help other people find the shape of their success. This is episode 33, and our guest is Joshua Coburn. I'm very excited to have Josh here. I've been trying to reach out to him for a couple months here, and we finally got him going. Josh, among many other things, is an author, a motivational speaker, a cigar enthusiast, and a world traveler. He has written a few books. His most current book I have here, it's called Shit That Needs Said, is out now. Josh, I wanted to just say welcome to the show.
Hey, what's up? Thanks so much for having me. I'm completely stoked to be here. Thank you.
Hey, I'm really excited to have you. You know, you've been inspiring me for a little bit on TikTok is where I found you, but you're also on Instagram and a couple other places. You have a YouTube channel, lots of places to find you.
Yeah.
Can you give us a little bit of background on yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Like you had mentioned, I'm an author, speaker, former body modification artist, which kind of explains a little bit maybe about how I kind of look overall. I'm a social media marketer by trade. Been in the marketing industry for, or the marketing side of industry for, 20 years. And really beyond that, my goal overall is just to help people live their best life, to try to kind of leave the world better than I found it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and so I have the title here as kind of unconventional motivational speaker, just because, people have different connotations of the way, just kind of looking at you, like you talked about, you have a lot of tattoos, you have some body modifications and things like that. And when they see you, I'm sure that a lot of times it kind of makes you wonder what they're thinking. And I love the fact that I can see past that. And I know that many people can because you have such a great following. How has that kind of played into you? Where did this tattoo mentality, the body modification, all that stuff come into your life?
You know what? I grew up in small town Iowa. So, my interest didn't lie in agriculture. It lied more in books and music and stuff like that. So in reading, National Geographic and stuff like that, I would see, these New Zealanders who were covered in tattoos or individuals from Hawaii. And then you couple that with like the mid to late 80s when you started to see musicians getting tattooed a little more regularly. I started to see like sleeves and stuff like that from guys like Gil Monty way back in the day. And that kind of spoke to me. It was kind of this crazy, like, honesty that individuals were wearing on their skin. And I didn't see that around where I was. So that's kind of where that all started. I loved the culture of it all. I love that you could get tattooed while you're traveling and have kind of mementos from the different places you were. And of course, travel was huge for me when I was a kid. That's all I wanted to do, was to get out of my small town. That's kind of where that started. And early on, people thought that I was doing it for attention and all this stuff. And I mean, gosh, I'm almost 40. That's, we're kind of over that. But at this point in my life, it's definitely a conversation starter. So it's super cool to, just be living my life and have people ask questions or come up and ask about certain things, whether it's, the implants on the backs of my hands or the dots on my forehead or whatever. And, it allows me to interact with people I otherwise wouldn't have. So it's pretty cool. Like you said, it's a neat opportunity and kind of way to kind of kick certain doors down. Because if I overhear somebody talking, about the way I look or whatever, I don't ignore them. I'm like, hey guys, I hear you talking about this amongst yourselves. Can I answer some questions? And then that just becomes kind of the conversation. So hopefully it helps to change that kind of viewpoint or their maybe initial impressions,
So do most of your tattoos that you have like meanings? I know that the 3 dots on your forehead mean something. Can you kind of talk to us a little bit about that and kind of where you went with the tattoos that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. The 3 black dots on my forehead represent your body, mind, and your environment. The 3 things that make us who we are as individuals. And what that really means is keep your head straight, keep your body, on track, physically fit where it needs to be, and keep your environment, whether that's, where you're physically sitting or just the people you surround yourself with on point. So then you can be your best. And that's what it's about, is being the best individual you can be. So it was something I created years ago to be just that reminder for myself. But beyond that, like my right arm is related to my childhood, left arm related to family, my chest or excuse me, more my stomach, I guess, is related to kind of death and how we have a short time here on earth. So everything that I have is related somehow to my life, in one way or another, which has been honestly really what it's about. Like I said earlier, it's really about kind of wearing an honesty on your skin.
It's kind of interesting because I feel like, I have a few tattoos and not as many as you do, but I always feel like people are judging me. How does that kind of play into the way that people look at you? I know that you said that you look at it as a way to go and just kind of talk to them and open a conversation, but has it ever bothered you? Is there any kind of like negativity that you've had to deal with having the tattoos and just kind of that look that people always I'm assuming that they probably like, oh, this guy's a biker, this guy's a thug, this is kind of,
Right.
that type of deal. How do you deal with that? Have you had to deal with that, or is it kind of a different time now?
I would say it's a different time today, mostly. I mean, a lot of people look, they want to see. I've had people while walking through airports, entire families looking at me and just like walk into a pillar or something because they're not paying attention to where they're going, which is fine. Like, I get it. I mean, I would look at me too. It's interesting when you see things that are kind of out of the ordinary. So no problem there. In my younger years, it was a little tougher because I had both arms sleeved out at like 19, 20 years old. My face was tattooed at like 19 or 20. So, I didn't really realize how much it would set me apart, especially in central Iowa in the late 90s. But over that time, I kind of gained strength from it all and learned how to kind of build up my own personal value, because prior to that, I couldn't hear people talk about how, looking like that, you'll obviously never have a career or a good job or anything like that. And I get their thinking and why they kind of had that mindset. But, it's been, 20 some years at this point. So it doesn't come up as often as it once did. However, many years ago, like I said, back when I was in my early 20s, absolutely it would weigh on me. When somebody tells you like you're not going to make anything of yourself, or, you're a waste of space, or you're never going to have a career, that can become a pretty heavy thing for a kid who's just kind of trying to get his footing. So it wasn't always easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, so you talked a little bit about, I mean, it sounds like, how old are you now? You're 40, or almost 40, is that what you were saying?
Yeah, I'll be 40 in just a few months. Yep.
We're pretty close to the same age. I'll be 40 in December. It's
Oh, awesome.
interesting though. Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. It's like, is it awesome or is it not? I'm not sure yet. And when I turn 40, it's just going to be another day, right? No big
Right,
deal.
right.
So, growing up in that kind of era, I kind of know exactly where it was going with you. And, coming from small town Idaho, which is kind of like what it was in Iowa, it sounds like,
Right.
listening to your story a little bit, did you have a little bit of a troubled kind of youth? What kind of got you into this motivation thing? I've learned a little bit about you myself, but can you kind of tell us a little bit about when you were younger and how you got through things and dealt with things?
Sure, absolutely. I was kind of that weird kid here in small town Iowa, simply because, like I said, I wasn't interested in agriculture and bush light, cruising the strip. I was, busy working my ass off. I wanted to travel the world. I loved books. I liked art. And that's where my head was constantly at. So I was always the weird kid. And over time, that started to kind of eat me up because, of course, I had to get tattooed, started to separate myself more. And I eventually hit bottom because I kind of listened to all that BS that other people would say. And I didn't take responsibility for my life. Things that would go wrong, I'd be like, oh, it's because they're saying this and they're saying that. And, they don't think I'm going to make it anywhere. So I'm not destined to go anywhere. And then I just created that destiny for myself. I never took responsibility for it. And I did. I hit bottom. I was dealing with depression, dealing with anxiety, really struggling, and decided that I was going to check out September 5th, 2001. I decided that I was just done with it. I didn't want to deal with the pressure and the BS anymore. Wrote a note And crazy enough, when I went to kind of, end things, my anxiety started to kick up enough that it was like, you can't do this right now. You can do it tomorrow, you can do it later, but right now is when you go to bed. And for anyone who struggles with things like anxiety bad enough, you know that that internal dialogue jacks with you so much that you kind of listen or you go even more crazy, right? So I went to bed and crashed out, got up several hours later, and I just felt different. All that kind of crap that, I've been stuffing down and not talking about, not sharing with family and friends. I felt like all that was lifted off my shoulders. And it was because for the first time ever, I let it out. I wrote it down. I put it, on the page. I could have shared it with, a friend or something like that, but I didn't. And I finally let it out for the first time. And it was that day that I remember deciding to take responsibility for what my life would look like, because leading up to that point, I kind of blamed everyone else and never took that responsibility on myself. So it was in that moment that I was like, look, I can't be the only person on this planet feeling this. And even if I'm at rock bottom today, one small step each day forward is still growth. And if I can help people up along the way and keep kind of climbing my personal mountains toward my goals, then I'm winning. And that was really kind of where it all started.
It's crazy. Over the last couple months, I've been on TikTok, which is an app that, if you guys don't know about, is kind of a big thing right now. And, obviously we've heard, oh, it's going away, it's coming back, it's going away, it's coming back. And so when I first saw one of your videos, it was kind of interesting because I got on there probably in January of this year. And there's all these people who, if you pay attention to TikTok, you see like they have these little blurbs and they'll point out words and they'll point them out as they go. I'm scrolling through there and it puts you in this algorithm, and all of a sudden it pops up this guy, this bearded, tattooed guy, and he rolls out and he's got a piece of paper with a quote on it. Okay. Today, or yesterday's, one of them was no better time to follow your dreams. And you've got some heavy metal music playing and you've got this written down. And my first thoughts were, this guy doesn't know how to do the little blurby thing. And then I noticed that over and over again, you were doing it, and I see it every day. And I'm like, I got to follow this guy. And I started to notice this. And so I'm assuming that this has been something that you've done for a while, because when I got your book, when I started to read this book here that you have, it kind of has the same exact thing in it. Where did this come from? What started to point you towards wanting to help people and wanting to motivate people with some of the things that you learned?
Well, yeah, I've been doing this for a lot of years, back in the MySpace days, it's been some time, right? And during that time period that I was just talking about, where I kind of decided to take responsibility for my life, that's fine to say, right? But it takes action to actually do. And, I'm like 19, 20 years old. Nobody tells us how to follow our dreams, how to kind of rebuild our confidence. Nobody tells us how, to be able to set these plans out that are really going to help you, not just 2 weeks or 2 months, but 10 years down the road. So I had to figure all that out. So one of the things I started doing was I'd write little notes to myself. Like, I hated smiling. I was angry at the world all the time. So I started just writing little notes that would say, like, today, choose happiness or smile. They're contagious. And I'd stick them around kind of my apartment. As time went by, I'd start sharing them on Twitter or MySpace or then Facebook and Instagram and now TikTok. And that's my way of reminding myself, hey, you know what? How about today you forget to talk shit about yourself and you go forward and kick ass? Today, that was today's post. And it was
Right.
a reminder to me, like, it's not always about, talking crap to yourself. Get over that. Remind yourself that you're going to kill it today, then go do it. So that's what it was all about. And through that process of sharing, and through that process of honesty, people started to pick up on it. And people would start sending me messages like, hey, man, that post yesterday really helped me out. I needed to hear it on my way to a job interview or wherever they were headed. And it just became this thing that I've been doing for now, like 20 years. So yes, I know how to do the point and, blurb thing on TikTok, and I do it, but that's not all I do. So, I write these things down and I post them almost every damn day just to kind of make lives better. It's very simple. Making a good life is easy, and success is easy. We just have to show up constantly and kind of do what it is we're sent here to do, right?
It's so refreshing to hear that. It's such an awesome story because I feel like, like I told you, it was just one of those things. Like that's the first thing that goes through your mind when you see that. But then as I went on, it was just over and over again. I mean, like this morning I was looking through your book because I look through your book, you know, often, and I kind of look through and I try to find something. And one of the things that I quoted this morning, because I do bonus coverage episodes and I do quotes, like, so we'll do this episode and then I'll do a bonus coverage and we'll talk about some of the things that I learned because I want you to talk and tell your story. And then I want to talk a little bit more about what I took from you. And so the quote that I used this morning is, "The time is now to walk the walk. You got to believe in yourself and your goals more than anybody. Waste no more time. Get up and get some because no one else is going to light the fire under your ass."
Right.
Those are the types of things that I need to hear. I'm a 40-year-old man here. Oh, I'm almost 40, almost 40. And the reason that I do this podcast is because there are so many different definitions of success, and seeing how you look at it and seeing how the other 32 guests that I have had look at it is different for everyone. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you do. Success is defined by every single individual and whatever way they want that to look like. And so
Right.
that's why you're here. I mean, and I'm so glad. I was so excited. It's been probably 10 episodes the last time I tried to reach out to you to have you on here because it's one of those things. You're a busy guy.
Yeah.
I mean, you do these motivational speaker gigs. How has that been going for you with COVID going on? And have you been able to do any like Zoom calls, any coaching, anything like that you normally do? How has that been working for you?
Yeah, coaching and all that stuff hasn't changed. I still do one-on-one coaching all the time. When it comes to speaking, like with what I do, doing it through a Zoom call just is not, that doesn't fly. I'll never speak again if I can't do it in person, because that exchange of energy, when you have 1,500, students or individuals in front of you, that exchange of energy, that realness, that primal human thing that connects us all has to happen for me to do what I do. I have no interest in doing, a Zoom presentation. That's just not who I am. So I won't. And that's okay. I had been planning on kind of cutting down the number of speaking gigs anyway, so I could travel less and hang with my family more and kind of chill at home. But, if the right thing comes along at the right time, I'll absolutely jump on it. But for the most part, like we were just talking about TikTok, if I can and reach, 150,000 people, that's a hell of a lot more than, traveling on 3 flights and doing 2 hotels and a rental car to walk out and impact, 600 people. Not that those 600 people are not important, but it's a matter of like, in this short life, where am I best served? And how can I best serve? So that's really what it's about at this point for me. Maybe I'll find my way to a stage again, but almost 20 years of doing that, I'm good. I kind of did the things I needed to do. So, maybe there's different avenues. Maybe there's different things. Maybe it just looks different in the next 5 years. I don't know, but we're going to find out, right?
Yeah. And that's kind of, I think that we're all in that situation right now because it's one of those things. It's like, look and see what's going to happen. Where are we going to be at in the future? We have a lot of stuff in front of us that we have no answers to. Right. I hope that you can continue to do that because I think that you're going to reach many with your story because I think it's a great story. One of the things that you kind of delve into now is cigars. That's kind of a big thing now for you too. I've seen a couple videos of you rolling those. How's that working for you? What's that all about?
You know what? My wife and I are just both cigar enthusiasts. We love cigars. We love cigar lifestyle. And for those who aren't familiar, the cigar lifestyle has really nothing to do with the cigar. Yes, sitting down with a cigar is nice and enjoyable, etc. But sitting in a cigar lounge in some city you've never been to, you end up sitting next to maybe a lawyer, maybe a doctor, maybe a newscaster or politician. You might sit down next to a mechanic or a kid that's, in college. And the great thing is, everybody just sits and talks and shares their life and shares kind of what's going on and exchanges ideas. And there's no judgment, there's no BS. It's just a bunch of kind people hanging out, having a conversation for like 90 minutes. Because if you light up a cigar, you got about 90 minutes. So that's what it's all about. It's about that connection, that real connection with other individuals.
I really like that because you've tied that all into everything that you do. You're able to tell a story. You're able to connect with other people. You're able to kind of, I'm assuming that you can probably talk a little mindset with those people when you're talking to them anyway, because you're figuring out who they are, you're interacting, and like you said, it's connection. It's a way to be social and socialize with other people.
Right. Yeah. And it becomes a natural kind of part of that conversation because, if you have a young kid who's trying to get somewhere, right, and struggling to get there and not knowing how to do it, maybe not even sure he or she can do it, mindset naturally becomes part of that story and part of that kind of discussion. But keep in mind, there might be another gentleman who's got, 30 years on me and who's about to drop some knowledge on all of us, and I'm just going to shut my mouth and listen because that guy, is about to spill the beans on some crazy things he did in the 40s and 50s, and I'm ready for it.
Yeah, that's a good way to get a little interaction, share some stories, and find out some cool stuff.
Dude,
so
absolutely.
So what would you tell yourself? What would you change, or would you change anything, or what would you tell yourself if it was 20 years earlier, 20 years ago? What would you say to yourself if you could go back?
I would just, I don't know that I'd change anything. I would, I just tell myself to take shit less seriously. I'm trying to tell myself that today. I'm here once. Like, I want to do the best, be the best, crush goals, all that stuff. And that's all great. But sometimes you just need to slow down, smell the roses, and not give a shit about that stuff, in those, rather in every single moment. I just tell myself, like, look, dude, chill out. It's not that big a deal. Life's going to be fine. You're here, you're showing up every day, you'll get to where you're going. And I think that's what a lot of young people need to hear. Like, show up, do the work, but gosh, don't stress so hard over it because that doesn't solve anything.
A lot of what's going on right now is difficult for some younger people and people in general. I had a friend the other day who talked about one of his friends committing suicide and just how this has created that situation where you can't interact with other people, you can't be around other people, and it's just a tough thing to deal with, and we take things pretty seriously, and that's a real thing. You talked a little bit about, you were going to end it, and that changed it. You had that switch in your mind that kind of changed that. Have
Right.
you ran across people who have talked about that? Suicide's kind of a real thing right now. It's a big thing, and how have you dealt with that?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten, a good number of direct messages on social media with people that are struggling, a few people that we've lost. It's one of those things where we're going to be dealt a series of challenges in our life, and it doesn't matter what they are. What matters is how we react to them. And I'm not saying anything new. Anybody who's out there who feels successful, who's out there kicking ass, they're going to tell you the same thing. It's how you react to it. I don't read self-help books. I write them. I don't read them. And it's because I read biographies mostly. And the reason I read those biographies is because they are successful individuals, leaders, politicians, whatever they are, actors, musicians, who were faced with a certain set of seemingly insurmountable odds and challenges, yet they showed up, right? And they told themselves the things that they needed to tell themselves to get through it. Now, my book is just those words, to help you if you don't know what to say. In times like now, it's just a challenge. This will be here and gone. It might take a few years, but there will be another challenge. And how are we going to face that? And that's really what I think is important to remember is if my mindset is this sucks, and I suck and everything sucks, well, life sucks. That's a fact. But if I'm like, look, here's a set of challenges. Things are not easy. The world looks bleak. People are rioting. The news sucks to look at. A lot of people are unhappy. But what am I going to do to make it better? And what in this second in my life am I going to do to make things better? And then how am I going to repeat that through the next, couple of hours, couple of days, weeks, months, into years? So what I'm really getting at is, for those who are struggling, remember, number one, it sucks to be vulnerable because you feel weak, but be vulnerable. Talk to your friends, send that text message to your parents or to your buddy. Be real, be honest, and then together we can face that challenge and we can work on mindset and we can grow past that. That's what's most important. We're hugely connected in ways we've never been connected before. We're not alone. We just think we're alone, and we got to remember that that's the case.
Well, I really appreciate that look in on it, because I really think that as men, obviously men don't look at that. They're never vulnerable. They don't understand how to be vulnerable because they've been taught for so long that they shouldn't be. So they shouldn't be able to talk about those things and get those things out. And a lot of times they end up just burning that and,
Right.
holding it back and not saying anything and not talking about it. So yeah, that's a great take on it. I encourage people to do that all the time. If you have something that you need to get out, you need to talk to someone about it, because if you don't, you got nothing but burying it, and it just builds up and ends with something that you don't want, that it shouldn't end up with.
Exactly.
So
Real true grit and strength comes from shedding some fucking tears. So suck it up and shed some tears. That's real brute strength to me. And I'd encourage any man out there who's struggling, let those goddamn tears flow, whether it's with your wife or your friend or whoever, because damn it, that's how we get through. There's no other way.
you're listening to a guy who lifts weights, a guy who's covered in tattoos, a guy with this glorious beard that everyone wants to know how long it took to grow, tell you that you should cry. So it shouldn't be something that you're scared to do. By the way, my guest, I have had some people ask me that. They want to know, how long did it take you to grow that beard?
You know what? I've had this beard for about 4 years-ish, give or take. We took, a few inches off maybe a month or two ago. So it always stays about this length. If it gets longer, it gets stuck in my damn armpit when I'm sleeping and everything else, and it becomes a pain in the butt. So it's got to go, So this length right here is about where it stays. But yeah, about four-ish years, give or take, I've had it.
All right. Well, just so they can understand, that's how long it takes to grow a beard, because I get bored. This is about a week's worth of growth, and it drives me crazy to get it any longer than that. So more power to you for dealing with that. Yep.
I got you. You can't be a wizard unless you got a wizarding beard, buddy.
I don't know if I'd look at it as a wizard on you, though. Now I have to think that, because you said it.
That's what little kids tend to think, and I think it's because it's got a lot of white in it, so that's what they associate. I don't know.
Hey, so we're going to do a last question here, but before we get to that, can you tell us where we can find you? I know you're on TikTok. I know you're on Instagram. Can you kind of give us your handles? Tell us the best place to connect with you. You have your own website, things like that. I'll link it in the show notes, but just kind of let us know where we can find you.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. JoshuaCoburn.com is the best place to find me, to kind of find everything at a high level. If you want to get those daily kind of posts that we were talking about earlier, I still do them. You can find those on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Twitter, wherever. And just Google me, look up Joshua Coburn. You'll find all those social media handles and everything else. Pretty easy, but if you're on any of those platforms, just like I said, Joshua Coburn is my name. So that's where you can find that.
Yeah, and you can check out on Joshua Coburn. Like I said, I have the book here. It's called Shit That Needs Said. He also sent me an awesome poster when I bought that thing. So I've got that framed up in the back here. You can't see it probably. It's up high there, but I thought it was a pretty cool picture that you sent. And I did a TikTok with it this morning because I wanted everyone to see this guy. So, well, before we get to the last question, we have a final question sponsor. This week's final question sponsor is the Warriors Collection. The contract expired, but the oath did not. Visit Warriors Collection on Instagram at Warriors_collection_ for your great Warriors Collection gear. You've seen me wear some of that stuff before. My great friend Brian Sales is a veteran who is building a brand. Check it out. So, Joshua, it's been awesome having you on here. I'm so glad that you were able to do this. We have one final question that we ask every single individual who comes on here because, as we talked about a little bit earlier, success is different for every single person, every single individual. Could be having a nice house, could be having a nice car, could be just helping others. The question is what is the shape of your success? How do you define success?
Success for me is very simple. Success is how often are you walking around every damn day with a smile on your face, and how many smiles are you creating? It's never been about a dollar amount. It's not about what I'm driving or what size of house I'm living in. Because at the end of the day, when I'm laying in my casket, no one's ever going to be like, "Damn, bro, did you see you drove a 1981 Cutlass?" No, they're going to be like, "That goddamn dude made so many people smile and helped so many people, and he always seemed to have a smile on his face." That's what they're gonna say. And if that's not what you did in your life, if you treated people like shit, they're gonna talk about how you were just a mean curmudgeon ass human being. And that's not success to me. Success is creating smiles and walking around with a damn smile on my face. So the more happiness that I can put into this world, the more successful I'll be.
Well, that's an awesome, awesome definition. I'm glad that you want to make other people happy, as well as knowing that being happy yourself is kind of a big thing. I want to say thank you for taking the time to be on here. I know that you're a busy guy, and I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story with us. I hope that we can connect again sometime, and thank you again.
Absolutely. A complete pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. Really appreciate it.
Well, hey guys, that's the end of the show. I wanted to thank you for tuning in. If you can please, again, do me a favor, share this. If you're listening to this on a podcast, follow Joshua wherever you can. Check him out. He's got a lot of great motivational things going on. And, it's kind of one of those things that we're reaching for, is to motivate people. And he can totally help you with that. And until next time, I want to challenge you to find the shape of your success.